Hello and welcome. I'm Matt Pooler. I'm the CME and 16 Plus Lead Officer for Worcestershire Children First. And I'm here to talk to you today about the Children's Services Portal and how, when, and what information to send through. First of all, though, I'd just like to go through some definitions, duties, and responsibilities. And this will probably be repeated by a number of colleagues on some of the other talks that are going to be available. But just to clarify, as it is one of the main points that comes up in my conversations with school, is that children at risk of missing education is not the same as children missing education. Children at risk of definition, children with poor attendance or behaviour in school and therefore on a school roll or on reduced timetables. And as part of the CME statutory guidance, schools should monitor attendance closely and address poor or irregular attendance. Schools should also undertake reasonable inquiries to establish a child's whereabouts, and schools should inform local authorities of pupils who fail to attend regularly or have missed 10 school days or more without permission. And then we as an LA may then provide support specific to the case, unless, of course, there is paid for services, traded services. So in that respect, this children at risk of missing education, you flag those to us through the 10-day absences. So that will be a notification to us rather than referral in to get further support. But sometimes it will lead to further support depending on the individual case. Children missing education, on the other hand, the DFE definition is those children not registered to a school and not in receipt of any other suitable education, for example, elective home education. We have a duty under section 436A to make arrangements to establish the identities of children in our area who are CME, and some of the work with children at risk of missing education can lead into that. LAs then should support any children missing education back into full-time education, and that's where the CME caseworker comes in and they will provide that support. Moving on to the portal, we have the Children's Services Portal known as the CFP. There are a number of portals on offer by Worcestershire Children First and Worcestershire County Council. So please do check which one you're going to. This is the internet web address at the top of the screen. You can also Google for it, and just Googling Worcestershire Children's Services Portal will bring up a link to this site. The site itself, once you log in, and you can set up your login by contacting the email at the end of this presentation. There will be an email there. Once you are logged in, you will see a number of different buttons and options depending on the permissions you have within the portal. Its primary function is a secure method of communication between schools and WCF and the County Council. So schools can advise of whether or not the school is shutting and can make referrals into a number of different services such as safeguarding, children's social care, Get Safe, etc. You can also tell us about in-year admissions and transfers, which is what I'm talking about today. So when you go into in-year admissions and transfers, you have 4 different options, which I'll come on to shortly. Firstly, though, it's worth pointing out that in-year admissions and transfers is for primarily reporting children of statutory school age. So we do occasionally need information on those that are approaching statutory school age and those that are leaving statutory school age. There are a couple of leavers options in there, but on the whole, this area is for just reporting to us children of statutory school age. It's still good practice to advise us of a child leaving your nursery, if you have a nursery attached, through this system, because we will then put a note on our system to follow up that child if they haven't moved into another school when they reach statutory school age, just to make sure they're not a child missing education. It's also worth pointing out that this information is for in-year only. We don't normally require information from transition points and the movement that happens then, unless it's previously agreed with a particular school, because some schools we are unable to get the information any other way, so we do ask for this information through here. Other things to remember: if a child does not start at a new school as expected, please notify us. So if you're expecting a child to start with you, they don't turn enroll, please do let us know. Also, don't worry if you think you're letting us know the information twice. We would rather have the information twice than not at all. Dual registered and children educated off-site, we still need to know about that absence. So if they are not attending their dual registered school or their off-site provision, please do let us know. Don't assume potentially that the other site is letting us know in some way. It's for the school to let us know. And finally, with the pandemic going on at the moment, there is also the use of the X code. Now, this is not a traditional absence and is being used to cover COVID related absences, which are technically not proper absences. What we have asked for, though, is because you can have large groups of children off with an X code, we don't want to know about those unless there are concerns about how that X code is being, the reasons why you've chosen to use the X code, if you're not sure the parents are potentially telling the truth or something like that. Also, if the X code changes to an illness code because the child then has COVID, then we would like to know about that as well. Moving on to the actual forms. So after you've clicked one of the different forms, you will be confronted with this screen. So this is the child joining form. Ideally, it should be completed as soon as the child is added to the school roll. There is some leeway in that, but it's better if you do it as soon as you put it on your system, because then you remember to do it. Each of the forms take a similar pattern. So first of all, you have the submission details, which is contact at the school and details on the school that's telling us about this individual child. You then have details of the child themselves, name, date of birth, UPN, etc. And then you have details about the carer or parent who the child lives with. So that would be their details, contact details, and address. Then finally, the pertinent information for each form is under additional information. And from there, you can select where the child was previously educated, so we can track their previous school, or also if they haven't come from a previous school, where they actually were educated previously, and then in this case also, is this part of a managed move? You then have the 10-day absence form. Now, just to repeat what I said earlier, this is a notification only. It's not a referral. We may contact you as a school to discuss the situation or suggest further action. We expect schools themselves to address poor regular attendance and to undertake reasonable inquiries to establish a child's whereabouts. But you do need to let us know. And so this is the 10-day absence form, but also it covers any form of regular absence. So it doesn't have to be 10 days consecutive. If it's a regular absence, we need to know about it. Also, you can use this form to tell us about updates to a previous 10-day absence. How often you tell us that, it doesn't have to be every 10 days. It can be on a regular basis, just so that we are kept up to date as to what is happening and what actions have been taken. There is also the red banner on the screen there, which is if there is a safeguarding concern or a child is believed to be in immediate danger at risk of harm, either call social services, social care, and or call 999, report to the police. We won't necessarily forward anything on in this form to these services in a timely manner, but if we do see a safeguarding concern, then potentially we will advise the school to make contact. In terms of additional information on here, you've got absent but whereabouts known, and then absent but whereabouts unknown. This allows you to flag to us whether or not you are concerned about that absence. So if you know they're going on holiday and you know they're going to be back, but you haven't authorized it, or you have authorized it, you can let us know through that means. But also where they could possibly become CME because they seem to have disappeared, you can do absent but whereabouts unknown. You can tell us the absence code used and the date of the 10th day of absence. And you can also let us know if this is an update for a previous 10-day notification and add any further information on. This is a brand new form. It came into play from the beginning of this academic year, and it's a part-time timetable notification form, because all schools should notify the local authority of any cases where a child is accessing a reduced or part-time education arrangement. Again, this is a notification and it's not a referral. So WCF may contact the school to discuss the situation or suggest further action. The form also allows a school to tell us if this part-time timetable is occurring in alternative provision or at the school, the start date of it and the expected end date, because a part-time timetable must not be treated as a long-term solution. So there should be an expected end date. You can also record the number of days attending and the number of hours attending per day, or at least the planned hours. And you can give us more information there in the free text box at the bottom. This is the child leaving form, and this is the final of the 4 forms. When a child leaves a school role, the school will have to give one of 15 reasons as to why the child is leaving. Some of those reasons are very specific and are probably unlikely to be used very often, whereas there are a number of reasons that are used more often. I'm giving a selection here of some of the leaving reasons here, just as an example. So for the beginning, we've got 8.1b, and at the top of each of these different reasons, you have the DFE explanation, which is often quite complicated. So in the case of 8.1b, except where it has been agreed by the proprietor that the pupil should be registered at more than one school, in a case not falling within subparagraph A or regulation 9, that he has been registered as a pupil at another school. So that's quite a complicated explanation of that leaving code. So we've created a guide underneath, which is where we've attempted to translate that DFE explanation, but also at the same time offer advice as how we would want that code to be used. So for this instance, 8.1b again, we're saying it's an in-year transfer to another school, and that includes out of county schools, but not out of country. Only use this option if the destination school is known. So if you know the destination school and it's out of county, then you can use this option. But if you know the destination school in another country, you can't use this option. I hope that's clear. The next leaving reason I've used as an example is 8.1l, which is basically for independent schools to use. They can use this as a catch-all reason for why a child is no longer going to be a pupil at that school. In this case, though, we've asked that if a child leaves an independent school to elective home education, to use a different leaving reason, and the same if they're permanently excluded. This allows us to pull in more information as to why these things have been chosen and to understand if the parents are in agreement, etc. So it gives us that additional information. Finally, we've got 8.1h, which I think is always worth discussing, as it can be quite a contentious leaving reason and is often the one I have the most discussions about with school. The guide says that the child has continuously been absent from the school for 20 days and the school and LA cannot ascertain the parent or child's whereabouts, and that all 3 points must be satisfied in order to correctly use this reason. The first 2 points are quite easy to satisfy. It's the third point that is normally the one that we have the most discussions over. So the proprietor of the school and the local authority have failed after jointly making reasonable inquiries to ascertain where the pupil is. So the school and WCF must agree that this point has been satisfied before 81H can be used. So to give an example, a school has sent numerous letters, left telephone messages, sent text messages, emails, etc., has had no response. They have then conducted a home visit and again have had no response. They think that they can put in 81H and so get in touch with me or a colleague and say, we're thinking of taking off roll due to 81H. I look on our systems and I can see that a social worker has attended the house after the school's home visit and found the family in and the child there. So I say we can't use H as a leaving reason because the parent and because the family are still present at the address. So the school need to treat this as a non-attendance issue. Also, it's worth mentioning the reasonable inquiries part as well. So if a school has failed to make contact using telephone, email, text, etc., but hasn't done a home visit, they cannot use 81H as a leaving reason because we don't know they are not at the house. Until that home visit is made and that home visit can ascertain that they're not there, i.e. because the new tenant is there or the house looks completely empty, there's nothing in there at all, or there's a for sale board, then we can't use 81H. Moving on to the leaving form itself, whenever you select a different reason, it will show the reason you've selected at the top of the screen and again include the guide. So this one here is for children that are leaving to be electively home educated. Below that in red, it states which additional documents are mandatory and required to be added in the supporting documents section at the bottom. So in this case, we need to see the parent letter declaring elective home education. We also need to see the learner profile. But the EHE exit form, which is supposed to be done in conjunction with the parent and school at a meeting and isn't always possible, that is not mandatory. On other leaving reasons, there is also a de-rolling checklist which is asked for, and that is also mandatory. Now, the learner profile and the de-rolling checklist cover a number of different leaving reasons. And some of the questions or information it asks for is just not relevant to that leaving reason or what has actually happened. So in those cases, do put not applicable or explain why there is no information that can be provided for that question. The rest of the leaving form is just the same as all other leaving forms, as all other forms. Finally, I just wanted to give a bit of context about how we're using the data and how it all fits together. So on this simple diagram, I've tried to explain how it all links together. So the green piece, this is the daily or weekly data feeds from a school's MI system, such as SIMS, ScholarPack, Arbor, etc. And we get that, as I say, daily or weekly, and that includes basic child details and such things as the basic attendance codes with very little detail. Currently, we have 92% of schools sending us regular data, and since the start of the academic year, 97% of schools have sent a data file. We also ask schools that if they are deciding to move systems, please do advise us so that we can discuss how best to receive a data file in future. We don't mind which system you use, as long as we're aware that we can get some form of data file out of that system to provide us with that baseline of data. Then moving across to the yellow data provided by schools, which I've just been describing. So since September 2018, we've had over 13,500 notifications. And since the beginning of the academic year, over 75% of all schools have used the portal to notify us of a joiner, a leaver, or a 10-day absence. And that adds some meat to the bones we're already getting of the daily or weekly data feed. Then on top of that, in the red section, this is data that might exist within WCF on a child. So if a child is involved with social care or with SEND or through admissions, there will be other data in there as well. And all combined together gives us a full picture of that child in terms of their education information and ultimately attendance and the reasons for attendance. So if any of those sections don't exist, we start to get a partial and incomplete picture. So that's why we are asking for all this information to come in. It allows us to build up that fuller picture, which then allows us to understand the attendance codes being used by school and wider issues that the child might be experiencing, and then also whether or not other teams should be providing support or not. So that gives a sort of overview of how the data should be all fitting together. And I'd just like to end on showing the contact details if you do want to get in touch further about what you've seen in the portal and how to use it. So the CME email address and the CME telephone number are if you want to know which leaving code you want to use or things like that, or questions about anything really. If you have an issue logging into the portal itself or want to create a new user account, that's support@worcesterchildrenfirst.org.uk, and also that's the email address if you're having issues sending through a school file regularly or you're planning to change your MI system in the near future. Thank you very much for listening. Please do get in touch if you have any further queries.